Let's go back to the year 1998, a revolutionary time for PC games. The original Half-Life, the first Baldur's Gate, StarCraft, so many iconic games released this year. And of course, it wouldn't have been possible without the biggest PC release of the year, Windows 98. Everybody knows about Windows 98, I think, and it was an absolutely amazing place to play video games before XP hit the scene. But I feel like a lot of people forget about the other computer that came out in 1998. I'd argue that this was leagues better than Windows 98 was, and honestly, a forgotten gem in the history of gaming. Of course, I'm talking about none other than 98XX. Wait, you don't remember 98XX? Come on, Jumping Julian. What? Talking Gerald? Okay, enough being silly for now. Fast forward to modern day and digital horror is absolutely massive. Petscop, games like Shipwrecked and Kinetopet, a million different videos on YouTube. For the past few years, it has completely taken over as one of the biggest indie horror genres. Okay, maybe not biggest, but I mean, it's up there. Now, among all of the meta horror and digital horror out there, there's a game that I believe slipped through the cracks. Granted, I didn't know this game existed until I saw a comment about it over a year ago, but I still don't see much about it. And that game is 2023's 98XX. See, that intro had a reason to be there. I swear I didn't just want to glaze Windows 98. 98XX is a digital horror ARG, fourth wall breaking, I'm not even sure what to classify this as. It's everything, alright? Created by Jackson G13 back in 2023, 98XX is this strange simulator-like game where you explore this old gaming PC and all of the secrets it has to offer. It's slowly been updated to include a bunch more stuff, which concluded with the final update in May of 2024. Now, I tried my hands at this game back when I bought it last year, and I wasn't really a big fan, but I've decided to give it another shot with this new update releasing. Did my opinions change? I mean, they changed enough to make this video, so that's something. I definitely have some opinions on this game, but overall I did think it was a pretty fun experience exploring and deciphering the many different codes. I mean, where else are you gonna get lore drops through a matching game about a car crash? So what exactly is 98XX? Well, the opening cutscene does a pretty good job at explaining it. Made by Mirez Incorporated, 98XX is a revolutionary gaming computer with top-of-the-line games. This was top of the line in 98? Alright, sure. Anyways, with this video slash threat wrapped up, it's finally time to dive into the game. This game takes place on a fake desktop, kind of similar to Kinetopet, except with Kinetopet it was more like your desktop rather than a completely virtual one. Also, is this supposed to be like Windows 98? Why is this straight up just Windows XP? That ain't bliss. Now, this game doesn't have normal or linear gameplay, as it's heavily based on exploring and deciphering the different programs on the desktop. You can go in whatever order you'd like. Document, settings, the world is truly your oyster. There's no real starting point for what you're supposed to do, so I'll talk about all of the applications one by one with no real order, and talk about 98XX as a game as I move on. And of course, as I've mentioned previously, this game is a big old juicy alternate reality game, or ARG for short. Now, I tend to avoid talking about ARG stuff just because I am so bad at deciphering and presenting it. However, since it's such a big crux of this game, I will do my absolute best to mention and talk about the ARG elements present in this game. However, if I even see one comment telling me that I missed something or that I was wrong, I am sicking my 2010s creepypasta friend on you.
Hey, you missed the secret Plimbo cutscene.
Kill. Let's start off with the first program on the computer, jumpingjulian.exe. And just because it has a .exe does not mean it's evil or bad. We do not need to raise kids nowadays to think executable files are evil just because of a certain bloody rodent. Anyways, Jumping Julian, woo! According to most of the story in this game, Jumping Julian was the biggest game of the bunch here, apparently being one of the greatest gaming experiences of the 90s.
Hello there. My name is Julian, and I am very happy you are playing with me.
I mean, to be fair, Mario 64 never had voice acting. That's one thing Julian has over him. Anyways, this is Julian, and he's very happy to play with you. The goal here is to do some platforming and make it to these flags at the end. It is the most bare bones platforming possible, and you only have to make it through 3 levels here. All with our buddy Julian encouraging himself the whole way through. Positive affirmations are important after all. Make it to the end and your computer appears to blue screen. Nothing seems to open when you boot up your PC though. That's weird. I must have broke it or something. Holy shit, it's Julian! Before you can get back into the game, Julian thought that the game was just a little too boring, so he decided to soup it up. After he casually asks what you think about the afterlife, you can jump right back into the game. Now, I don't know if it's intentional, but this game plays pretty rough. It's not just this game though, every single game on this computer has very simple and janky controls. I guess it lines up with most random Windows 98 PC games from back in the day, but this is supposed to be the cream of the crop. This is just Scratch, but with a time machine. Thankfully, we don't have to play for much longer, as when you hit the 3rd flag once again, the PC blue screens once again. It, knows my name this time when booting up for some reason, and not concerning, I'm sure. I'm sure that this man in the distance isn't concerning either. Alright, that's concerning. I lied, I'm sorry. Julian doesn't seem like he wants to be chill with you anymore. As these weird analog horror-ass creatures appear, Julian says, "You gotta die," and then he rushes the screen. And then a completely different blue screen pops up. This is Windows 10. What era are we in? This is where I'm gonna address the 3D rendered elephant in the room. This game does not look great. Now, granted, there are better looking parts of this game, but there are also much worse looking parts as well. Listen, I don't like dogging on games for how they look, but I feel like it brings the impact of this game down a lot. The fact that this game already uses a lot of cliche jump scares to get its horror across isn't great, but coupled with the graphics that look like this, it's just not effective in the slightest, and it makes for what could be a really cool concept only be remembered for its lackluster presentation. There are multiple times where the scares actually look like they were made in MS Paint. I hate when people compare bad graphics to MS Paint, but this is literally MS Paint. Jackson, if you're watching this, my advice is to get someone on board with graphics. You're very obviously a talented programmer, and regardless of the quality, this entire game is an incredible feat for one person. But trust me when I say that having someone there to help you will go a long way. I'm not trying to be mean about it either, I just want to make sure that interesting games like this get the attention they deserve, you know? Then again, I draw like all of my graphics from my videos in PaintNet, so who am I to judge? Sorry about that long-winded tangent, back to the game. Let's talk about my boy Talking Gerald next. Also, why are there teeth in the background now? I'm scared. Talking Gerald is a very basic game. Ask Gerald a question and he'll answer. These are some pretty standard questions you can ask though. You could say hi, ask for jokes, tell him he's worthless, all things that I do to my local severed head. Wait, hold on, I've got a question. Gerald, what code can people use at gamersubs.gg for 10% off their order? Code TOADBUP. Whoa, that's crazy. They really put that in the game. I guess you gotta use my code now, Gerald himself said so. Now, outside of some strangely dark stories, there's really only 2 options that lead somewhere, being nice and being mean. If you tell Gerald he's forgiven and that it'll all be over soon, he'll be so overwhelmed by your kindness that he'll just die on the spot and crash your computer. On the other hand, if you're mean to Gerald and tell him it's too late for him, he doesn't take it too well and you get hit with a good old jump scare. Yeah, that's what you get, asshole. Don't be mean to Gerald. Also, this guy's here. Liquefy tool and all. Actually, now that I'm going through the footage, the liquefy tool was used a lot in this game. It's like a weird combination of creepypasta cliches and analog horror cliches, all packaged into a digital horror game. I wonder what would happen if you said that sentence to a Wall Street guy. I think he'd just start crying. Now, there are a decent chunk of programs here that just serve the purpose of providing a little code or maybe a little ARG element, so let's just quickly go through them and talk about what they have to offer. And not settings though, that's literally just the settings to the game. I don't know what you'd be looking for in there. Let's start with my favorite, matching game. I can't believe they just blatantly ripped off Toontown. I mean, they were the first one to ever make the matching game. That's real, that's canon. It's literally just memory. Flip a card, match it, that's it. The first two levels are normal, but the third one has realistic images of a brain and cars. This is a lore element, I'm calling it. The fourth level is also pretty normal. Let's see here, gotta match the real eyeballs, alright, got it. The poorly drawn die, the skeleton, and done. After this, you're given a QR code, which appears to be an interview for Evan Anderson, an employee at Calvis Games. Oh yeah, Calvis Games is the company that made like 99% of the games on this computer. Nothing special here, just a little phone number to call later. Next up, we've got the audio player. You can mess around with 3 different audio files, 2 of which appear to give hints for you to discover other secrets. One of them gives you a link to type into the browser, and one of them gives you a hint that you'll use later on. The link in question is from the website called 98xxworld.com, which anytime you get a link to investigate something, it's gonna be from this website. The link leads to a news article about a car crash, including a black pickup truck and a blue sedan. I told you it was lore, I told you! Typewriter has a similar function, just being there to give you a hexadecimal number to translate. The little pencil guy is pretty chill though. He made writing my will an absolute blast. Moving on to photo editor, it's exactly what it sounds like, a photo editor. You can draw on pictures, invert the color, and brighten the image. Its purpose is to unveil this 3-digit number right here, which leads us to the next program, Documents. Off the bat, there's nothing special about this program. That is until you input various 3-digit codes you get throughout the game. Text documents containing little pieces of the story are slowly added to your collection as you find these 3-digit numbers. I'm not going to go through each and every document because I don't think it's necessary right now, and also because I'm lazy. I'll shout out this document though, which appears if you type in 666 and it tells you to repent of your sins. Thank you, Documents folder, for showing me the true meaning of 98XX, having faith in our Lord. Next up, we've got Photo Gallery. Different from Photo Editor. Common misconception, I know, but don't get it wrong because then Gerald will get sad. Same thing with Photo Editor where you can find some 3-digit codes here, except for this one, it's a small flashing lights warning. Okay, it's not really that bad, but you could skip to here if you want to. Because this silly guy here seems to have a mysterious floating ball next to him. Jesus Christ, man, warn me before you do that next time, oh my god. What's left? You got Pixel Paint, which is a basic paint program. Its only purpose is to reveal the shape pattern after painting for a bit, which could be used in puzzle patterns. You need to figure out the pattern for this puzzle. I'm struggling to find things to say here. Please don't judge me. Pop in that pattern you found from Pixel Paint. You're given a heart attack so that you can unveil a QR code. I absolutely hate playing these types of games at nighttime because when I'm tired, I am susceptible to every single jump scare known to man. The QR code leads to this interview of a man named Mr. Monkford. More on him later when I string together the lore like a child building a giant Lego tower that's barely stable. There's the book reader, which just supplies you with yet another code, and also the stories probably have lore relevance, who knows. Dial caller is your telephone application, but the creator was smart enough to make the phone numbers too long for real life. Imagine YouTubers making a video on this game, so many 12-year-olds would be calling these numbers and asking if Gerald's there or some shit. You pick up a few phone numbers to call throughout the game, which assist you in some of the lore elements. Then there's a shape match. You match the shapes. Oh, also there's another QR code if you win. That's how I describe most of these programs. It's an insanely simple game with a jump scare and a secret somewhere. This was also the point in the game when I got the shit scared out of me by a random phone call. I too like to call strangers and say random numbers.
Hello?
64782!
Little punk, who is this? I'm gonna find you! I'm gonna rip.
We're nearing the end of the programs, don't you worry. With Video Editor, you can invert and brighten this one video here to get some different QR codes. Hold on, mittergna.mmv? That was the same name as the virus that jump scared me before. Looks like we got a real theory on our hands. A Mittergna theory. This QR code leads to this silent and kinda disturbing video with a montage of house images. Turning on the captions, it's apparently like someone reminiscing about the house and then they warn you about someone? I don't know. There's also Morse code inside of the video, which I was able to roughly translate with the help of my girlfriend, who can hear way better than me. It led me to this website with a download that had a text file that had a hexadecimal code that, when translated, links you to Jackson's other games. God damn it. I gotta respect the hustle though. Putting me on a wild goose chase all for a self-plug? That's actually hilarious. I can't lie. That begs the question, are these other games part of the lore? Well, I don't know. I didn't play them. Math game and question answer game are very similar. Answer the questions given to you, the questions get a little odd, and then by the end, something scary happens. In the case of question and answers, everything turns into Julian, and then you get a skeleton GIF jump scare. In the case of the math game, it once again mimics Windows 10 for some reason. Why do they keep doing that? And then this kinda unnerving photo of a red dude appears right on my screen. I know it's cheesy, but I am not a fan of this image. It's just gross. Get this dude out of my face. Alright, let's try to wrap this up here. Ball Popper, Tank Blast, and Asteroid Blast are all pretty similar. These three are all high score based games, each of them mimicking a classic game from the past. Ball Popper is Breakout, Asteroid Blast is Asteroids, and Tank Blast is actually Donkey Kong 3, believe it or not. That's crazy. Just don't die in any of these games and you'll be fine. If you die in Ball Popper after a certain amount, this upstanding gentleman will appear on your screen, teleport you into the void, and then crash out hard for some reason. If you die in Asteroid Blast, you're met with this weird green orb. Why is he sad? Who hurt him? Now, listen, I already said what I had to say earlier about the presentation of this game, but a stick figure jump scare? An MS Paint stick figure jump scare. Forget what I said about that one dude crashing out. I'm about to crash out. I paid money for this. Anyways, if you get a high enough score in this tank game, you get a link to this montage of spooky pictures. I don't know what else to say here. Let's just get to the Dancing with Darcy. This is a rhythm game where you have to press the circles to the music. Well, actually, you don't press the circles to the music because it's not in tune in the slightest. But you know what? Just use your imagination. There's 3 difficulties here: easy, medium, and hard. Hard was a little bit tricky, but overall, you should be able to sweep this pretty easily. Once you beat all 3, you unlock the mode. Everybody knows that clicking something like this in a horror game is a horrible and terrible idea. So of course, I'll be clicking it for your amusement.
Do you ever feel like no matter how hard you try to do the right thing, you end up still failing? Mistakes just keep happening. Then I suffer for my mistakes.
Now I'm here. I am not me. I am not one.
Told you it was a bad idea. And the last program, and certainly not least, is none other than Kingdom Quest. This is my favorite only for one reason. It's totally just a Chips Challenge parody. Any Chips Challenge fans watching? Is that still a thing people know about? If not, go to Steam, buy Chips Challenge. Your whole world will be changed. Anyways, you gotta navigate this flat 2D plane with a time limit and a limited amount of moves. Like all things in this game, it eventually gets a little frickin' scary, as you can use this bloody key to unlock this bloody lock and get to the bloody smile. What does this even look like in real life, and why would somebody willingly enter it? After being trapped in the void for a bit, you get the princess here discussing how lonely she is here, how there's no escape, and how it's all futile. Ew, a child. With Kingdom Quest said and done, we can finally move on to, wait, where'd all the icons go? So, remember that little virus that was on the computer earlier that I said was not a problem? Yeah, it's still there. Your computer is absolutely overrun with error messages as the PC proceeds to crash, and you're sent to this strange empty chat room. You have to talk with this unknown user who likes to talk all cryptic. They are such a crybaby though. Oh boo-hoo, I had big dreams and I was wronged. After a little bit of back and forth, your character demands for the user to show themselves over a chat room? Am I stupid? Alright, never mind, I guess they could show themselves, guess I was smart all along. It turns out that it's actually Mittergana.exe from earlier, the true mastermind of 98XX. I know I touched on it earlier, but I just want to say again, .exe files are not automatically evil. If anything, I think I trust .jar files way less. Oh wait, no, .bat files. I swear to God, I've never trusted a .bat file in my entire life. Mittergana wants to start a cult and make sure that I am part of it. I thought this was about making silly video games with Julian. What happened? A quick flashing lights warning, as after Mittergana asks me to join, he closes my game, fills my desktop with text files, and then just flips out all over my screen, leading to the end of the game. Now, all of what I just described is what I consider the normal 98XX experience. This is what the player will experience if they just play through the game normally and disregard all of the ARG elements. Well, I still talked about all the ARG elements, but I didn't actually put any of them into practice while talking about this part. You may have noticed that there were two programs that I left out, Surfer and Security. Surfer holds a lot more of the lore secrets, which we'll get into soon enough, but Security holds the key to something else, the good ending. If you look at the security center, you'll notice that all 6 of these users appear to be offline. This is where the keys come into play. Remember that audio player hint that I mentioned earlier in the video? Well, that hint reveals that to start finding the keys, you need to go back to play with Jumping Mandela Catalog Julian. You need to go off the sides of the platform to access both the key and the gate. Once you've got both of these, the game restarts, you have one more analog horror moment, and you're thrown into a FNAF 3 minigame. Okay, I was joking, but man does this remind me a lot of the FNAF 3 minigames. Not saying that that was a direct inspiration here, but hey, it could have been. Roam around as a little circle in this blurry dark area, find the key, approach these crying orbs that might represent the victims of 98XX, and you get the first key. You've got to do this about 5 more times with different programs to get to the good ending. Make Darcy rethink her entire life again, tell Gerald that he totally isn't going to hell, find a secret block in Kingdom Quest, jump into a portal in Asteroid Blast, and last but not least, be absolutely cracked at poppin' balls. Once you've gotten the keys from all 6 minigames, you can open security and run the program. Or my bad, I mean you can execute. This proceeds to wipe the entire system as a huge list of names appears on the screen. Am I killing these people? I'm sure I'm just freeing their souls, but that would be so fucked up if I'm just straight up erasing them. Or my bad, executing them. Anyways, the security finds that son of a gun Mittergana and begins to remove them. I don't think he was too happy about that. Sorry, champ. With that, the victims of 98XX and Mittergana are freed. The souls thank you for your help, and 98XX comes to a close. Also, Julian invades your actual desktop to thank you. Alright man, I get it, just don't do that again. I don't want you touching my Mr. Beast calculator. 98XX is an interesting game, but before I give my thoughts on that, we've got some lore to cover. Now, the last application that I didn't talk about was Surfer, which has a bunch of articles talking about who made 98XX, more information about the devs behind it, and then what happened to them after. So, even though it's probably 100% wrong, here is my very not right take on the lore of 98XX. Sit back and enjoy. Alright, so it all begins with this company called Razzie Inc. They made these insane computer chips that were a technological marvel for the time. With such an insane product, Mirez Inc. had to get its dirty fingers in there. Mirez partnered with Razzie to create the 98XX, a computer that took gaming and technology to a whole new level. I mean, just look at this thing. Now that's a computer. The computer was incredible, and they decided to bring on an even more incredible man to help with making the games, John Monkford. He developed one of the best games for the system, Jumping Julian. This was an instant hit, for some reason, and kids just couldn't get enough of this 3D modeled son of Baldy. This is where things took a bit of a nosedive, however, as Rozzy employee Jason Storm went missing out of nowhere. Some were beginning to speculate that Rozzy might have had something to do with this, but they were like, nah, wasn't us. It was later revealed that Jason Storm actually left a very harsh review of Jumping Julian, which, coupled with a ton of very valid criticism towards the game, led John Monkford to quit. Now, there is a chance that Monkford might have been the reason that Storm went missing, but that would be crazy if he killed this dude over Jumping fucking Julian. Okay, the good ending makes me think that he killed him over Jumping fucking Julian. Anyways, crazy left turn because tons of employees at Rozzy Inc. begin taking their own lives while playing Jumping Julian. Turns out that Monkford took a page out of Lavender Town's book and included subliminal messages that trigger these suicidal tendencies. Before they could confront Monkford about this, he too had taken his own life and the gaming industry was at a loss. Rozzy Inc. shut down after this, as very obviously, they were not in a good spot after Monkford ravaged the company. Focusing more on Monkford, he has a daughter and a wife, Diana and Marissa. He might have divorced his wife, but I don't know. Sadly, on August 12th, 1998, a drunk driver by the name of Gary Summers had crashed into the two, killing them both. Gary was the only survivor of the crash and was subsequently arrested. But for some unexplained reason, he was bailed out by Monkford of all people. This is where all the stuff with the souls begins to happen. Gary is stuffed into talking Gerald by Monkford as punishment for killing his wife and daughter. While on the opposite end, in an attempt to try and save them, he stuffed his wife into Dancing with Darcy and his kid into Ball Popper. Ball Popper is the only cursed game where a child is featured, so that's my guess as to where his kid was put. On top of that, every person who took their life because of Jumping Julian had their soul put into the computer too, as you can cross-reference the names of those who died with the ending scene of the good ending. Now, I don't know who was stuffed inside the space game. I'm assuming it was whoever this green person was? Same thing goes for Kingdom Quest. Let's just say it was Ben Stiller or someone. Anyways, this all leads to the question, who are you and who is Mittergana.exe? Well, if you look at all of the imagery in this game featuring the scary red eyes that are associated with Mittergana, they're always accompanied with lines like, "I'm still here," and other cryptic sayings, so I think it's safe to assume that this is Monkford. He's clearly found a way to preserve himself in this virus, similar to how he preserved the souls of the others. But then, who is the player? I don't know, just a random dude who likes computers? I think that about covers the entire game. There's so many different codes and videos and other things I didn't mention, so I advise that you go to the game yourself and dig around. You might find something I didn't talk about. With that out of the way, this game was weird. This game has a lot of stuff going for it. For one, I'm a sucker for a good meta horror game, you all know that. This does the fourth wall breaking stuff fairly well. It's not perfect per se, and the scares can be pretty cheesy at times, but I still love when the game messes with or pretends to mess with your computer, because they have a reason to be there. I hate when horror games break the fourth wall for no reason, but a game all about a haunted desktop has the pass to go hog wild with meta horror. Also, I like when the blue screen of death flipped the frowny face. That was kinda funny. The crowning jewel is definitely the ARG elements though. The amount of secret codes, videos, images, audio files, it's all super impressive. Every piece of information not only had to be hidden in a clever way, but linked together in a coherent way as well. It was confusing at times, sure, but I feel like all lore in indie horror games is confusing nowadays. That's a problem with the genre though, not this game particularly. As someone who isn't the biggest fan of doing ARG stuff myself, I actually had fun deciphering the codes and piecing this story together, and I was able to keep up with it fairly well. I'm excited to see where Jackson's next project, Julian and Friends, fits into all of this. Unfortunately, for as many things this game has going for it, it has just as many things working against it. For one, and I already touched on it, the graphics are just not working for me. Once again, I can appreciate that the developer did all of this himself. That is insanely impressive, but there's nothing wrong with getting someone on board to do some art. When you have a stick figure jump scaring the player, you gotta take a step back and change something. The scares are also a little cheesy. I find the uncanniness of the liquefied images a bit unsettling at times, but these types of scares are to analog horror what hyper-realistic blood is to creepypastas. I wish there was more done here beyond jump scares. I feel like the atmosphere of an old, potentially haunted computer has a lot of potential for some scary moments. Also, the games themselves weren't the best. I get that was probably the point to keep this stuff simplistic, but I found myself only caring about the ARG stuff after the first 20 or so minutes of the game. I just wish the gameplay was a tad bit more engaging, but I do get it, that's not what this game was supposed to be. Overall, 98XX is an interesting footnote in the history of fourth wall breaking horror. It didn't pick up an insane amount of traction when it first came out, and while I wish it did, I can also see why it didn't. I'm excited to see what Jackson works on next, as this trailer looks pretty promising. I will say that it's a good thing that computers don't actually exist. That would be absolutely terrifying. Oh god, they made the thing from 98XX real? Yikes, looks like I'm gonna have to 90 escape XX from this game.